And she talked so much about sex that my dad experienced that comedy set like a man who's been to Nam, because to this day he still has flashbacks. That was 7 years ago. He could be making a cup of tea or walking down the street and be like, "Jeez, Kate, remember the girl was talking about putting cum in her eyeballs?"
Good morning. It's Friday, Policecraft Friday, June the 14th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, the 33 strategies of war, and policecraft. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Well, Joshua put the battle around Jericho, around Jericho, around Jericho. Well, Joshua put the battle around Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Then Joshua put the battle around Jericho, around Jericho, around Jericho. Then Joshua put the battle around Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Good morning, Sister Mary. Good morning, Brother John. I want to stop and talk with you just to tell you how I come along. I know you've heard of Joshua. He was the son of Nun. He never stopped his work with God until his work was done. Around Jericho, around Jericho, around Jericho. Joshua hit the battle around Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. You may talk about the men of Gideon. You may talk about the men of Saul. There's none like good old Joshua at the battle of Jericho. Well, tell the great God that Joshua's spear was well nigh 5 feet long. Then upon his hips was the double-edged sword, in his mouth was the gospel horn. But woe had brave out salvation on his way. Go blow the ramble, Joshua cried, get the battle in my hand. Joshua the battle around Jericho, around Jericho, around Jericho. Joshua the battle around Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Up to the walls of Jericho, he marched with his spear in his hand. Go blow the ramble, Joshua cried, get the battle in my hand. Then the ram shot the horns began to blow, trumpets began to sound. Oh, Joshua shouted glory, and the walls came tumbling down. Then Joshua the battle around Jericho, around Jericho, around Jericho. Joshua the battle around Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down, 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 tumbling down.
Thank you. And now, Stuart Varney and the headlines.
Hey, everybody, and a very beautiful Father's Day to my dad, who is in heaven right now. I miss cooking with you, dear, precious Vincent. Love you so much. Have a great day, everybody, and a good weekend. Barney and Company picks it up. Stu, take it away.
Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. President Biden, again showing his age and infirmity. At the G7 meeting, attending a skydiving demonstration, he appeared to wander off. He had to be led back by Italy's leader. He did not seem to know what to do. Later, he reprimanded a reporter for asking a question about Gaza. It was not a pre-approved question. Biden said that was against the rules. There is no such rule. The president will leave the meeting early. He's skipping a Ukraine meeting. Vice President Harris will go instead. Biden's going to Los Angeles for a fundraiser with George Clooney. Trump had something to say about this. He said the world is laughing at us. Separately, he went to Republicans in Congress looking to unify the party. By all accounts, he was successful. There's no love lost between him and Mitch McConnell, but they were laughing together, and McConnell said it was a very positive meeting. Today, Trump goes to Detroit. He's courting the black vote. Let's see what kind of reception he receives there. Let's get to the markets. The S&P and the Nasdaq close at all-time highs. We do have some selling this morning. Reading for the Dow to the tune of 270 points. S&P down 20, Nasdaq down about 40. Check out Adobe. That stock is way up this morning. Strong profits, strong revenue, positive outlook. Adobe says its customers are using its AI tools, and the stock is up 15%. The yield on the 10-year Treasury, very important number, but it was below 420. Now it's bounced back up again. You're at 421, down slightly. The 2-year yields 4.68%. They have it. Bitcoin, $66,000 as we speak. 67, I'm sorry. Oil, what is it now? I won't say it until you see it on the screen. $78 a barrel. Gas, $3.46 for regular. That's up 1 cent. Diesel, $3.78, down 1 cent. On the show today, Elon Musk gets his big pay package. At the shareholders meeting, he was ecstatic. He said the move to autonomous driving technology was accelerating, and Tesla's shipping 1,300 Cybertrucks a week. We'll show you the new, softer, gentler Donald Trump. Well, that may be an exaggeration, but he appears to have toned down his nastiness. It's a reversal. Biden is now the angry old man, and Trump is making friends with his enemies. How about that? Friday, June 14th, 2024. Varney & Company is about to begin.
And that was Stuart Varney with the headlines. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Stuart Varney's My Take.
There was a time, not too long ago, when Donald Trump used harsh language on his opponents. Both Democrats and Republicans, by the way. Frustrated by endless attacks and Biden's politically motivated lawfare, Trump was angry, and his demeanor showed it. He appears to be toning it down a little. Maybe he's been getting some media training. Maybe he's started to listen to political advisors who want to attract voters outside Trump's base. But whatever the reason, a shift seems to have begun. And it started with his lengthy interviews with Sean Hannity, and then with Pete Hegseth, Rachel Campos Duffy, and Will Cain on Fox and Friends. He was relaxed, calm, not angry, not looking for revenge, no harsh language. Trump moved ahead from there. Thursday in D.C., Trump addressed congressional Republicans. He wanted to heal the divisions of the past, and by all accounts, he did it. Mitch McConnell was in the meeting. He said it was entirely positive. They shook hands, laughed, joked together. That's a far cry from the outright hostility between them after January the 6th. Trump, without naming him, welcomed the attendance of Congressman Dan Newhouse from Washington State. Newhouse had voted to impeach Trump. Times change. Trump hasn't lost his fire. Oh, no. He's just not so nasty. And instead of looking back, he's looking forward. And why not? His base is solid, they're not leaving, but if he wants to win in November, he's got to bring in more independents. There may not be that many people left in the middle, but moderating the language and the anger is the best way to attract them. It's the best way to win. Again, think of the contrast. President Biden comes across as an angry old man, frustrated by his age and memory. He's turning people off, especially young voters. But Trump is the guy who can laugh it up with Logan Paul or smile at his opponents, former opponents. Smart strategy. And what a switch. It's Joe Biden who is now the aging, angry guy. Trump is the dynamic peacemaker. Second hour of Varney just getting started.
So, of course, Donald Trump is mellower now. It has nothing to do with Sean Hannity or any of the other hacks. It has to do with the fact that he's way up. It's easy to be magnanimous when you're winning, and he's winning. Whereas in 2016, he had everybody in it and their mother coming after him every which way. Anybody would have been. Mother Teresa would have been nasty under those kinds of circumstances. And the kinds of attacks that he's had to put up with over the years, again, Mother Teresa would have been just as nasty. So now that everything is going his way, he's way up in the polls in every state, every which way you can figure it. And the Republican Party is falling into line. The people that used to hate him are now praising him. There was a clip of that where there was 4 Republicans, 1 female and 3 males, and they played, one of them was Lindsey Graham, of how they treated him in 2016 and 2020, versus now. And none of these four had anything nice to say about Donald Trump the first time around, but now they're singing his praises. The woman said, "Oh, I want my children to grow up in Trump's America," blah, 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 all that, whatever. But the point is that they are, finally, the Republican Party is doing what it's advocated conservatives do, which is fall into line, do as you're told, vote Republican. Don't worry about so much about who it is, vote Republican. Because that's what they always used to tell us. Well, your conservative guy's not going to win, so you need to hold your nose and vote for George Bush. Or you need to hold your nose and vote for Mitt Romney. Okay, well, now the guy is Donald Trump, so now it's time for the RNC to hold its nose and vote for Trump. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Patriotic Shorts.
On October 6, 1986, an SR-71 Blackbird was monitoring Russian nuclear-powered submarines at Murmansk. When the jet made a turn for a second pass near the coast, the pilot saw a white contrail, flying low, but towards the SR-71. It was a Soviet MiG-31 Foxhound, getting close to the U.S. aircraft. Actually, the SR-71 too was leaving a white, bright contrail that was easily visible. The SR-71 was supposed to make a turn to the west, but if the jet was even a little late, the MiG wouldn't hesitate to fire. The radar-guided missiles were useless due to the jamming and the SR-71's low RCS, but the crew was worried about the Foxhound's R-60 heat-seeking missiles, as they had no flares. As per the pilot, this scenario reminded him of two knights coming towards each other at full throttle. But the problem was, the SR-71 was unarmed. But then, at 65,000 feet, it looked like the MiG-31 lost its airspeed and faded away.
A lot of people have the misconception that you flew the same plane all the time you were there. Not at all. I flew in the Eradicator probably 6 times. Different planes every mission just about, because if you got flak holes, they had to be fixed. And the ground crew worked overnight. They worked day and night, repairing them.
In the early morning hours of June 16, 1943, Captain Jay Zemer and his crew, nicknamed the Eager Beavers, boarded their B-17 for a solo 1,200-mile photography mission of the Japanese airstrip at Buka in the Solomon Islands. It was considered a suicide mission. While photographing the airfield, they spotted a group of Japanese Zeros taking off. It was unanimous that they continue. Over the next 40 minutes, the B-17 came under unrelenting fire. Though Zemer sustained wounds in both arms and legs, he maneuvered the plane so skillfully that the crew shot down 5 enemy planes and survived the onslaught. Slipping in and out of consciousness, Zemer helped guide the plane to an emergency landing 580 miles away. Zemer was awarded the Medal of Honor, as was his bombardier Joseph Sarnowski, who perished during the attack. The rest of the Beavers were awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, making it the most highly decorated aircrew in American history.
These bloody nature worshippers, they'll take everything from you. Do you know what the C40 consortium is?
No, I've heard of it, but I don't know enough about it.
It's a consortium of municipalities, 40 of the biggest cities in the world. They've all signed on to this. So what's their agenda? You can't even believe this is true. 1 short-haul flight per person every 3 years. 95% reduction in private automobile ownership. You know this idea we're going to have electric cars? Yeah. Everyone knows the grid can't withstand that. No meat consumption.
I know. Europe right now. Yeah. And everywhere we go, it feels like people are evangelizing veganism to us.
Yeah. Finally, 3 items of clothing a year. That's their plan.
No.
Absolutely. How much bloody clothing do you need? The planet's at stake, and you need to drive? What makes you so special? Yeah. What puts you above the rats and the weeds, exactly?
Stay home, watch porn, and get Uber Eats from the electric car. Yeah. Just shut up, mate.
Yeah. Well, you get Uber Eats, what are you going to get? You're roasted what?
Mushrooms?
Soy, so you can grow breasts as a man.
She was in the first class of 39 flight nurses to graduate from the Army Air Force School of Air Evacuations in February 1943. They were taught crash procedures, survival training, and the challenges of nursing at 10,000 feet while under enemy fire. She was First Lieutenant Mary Louise Hawkins, and like all of the nurses in the program, she volunteered for the hazardous assignment. In September 1944, while evacuating wounded soldiers from Peleliu, their C-47 crashed on Bellona Island. One of the soldiers suffered a severed trachea and was bleeding profusely. With only seconds to spare, she rigged the inflation tube from her life preserver to clear his throat and provide him oxygen for a staggering 19 hours. The flight began with 24 boys in my care, and I was determined it would end with 24 boys in my care, she recalled through tears shortly before passing in 2007. Mary Louise Hawkins became the first woman awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross during World War II.
And that was the Patriotic Shorts. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a little motivation.
When you have a dream, it doesn't often come at you screaming in your face. Dreams always come from behind you, not right between your eyes. It sneaks up on you. Sometimes a dream almost whispers. It never shouts. Very hard to hear. So you have to, every day of your lives, be ready to hear what whispers in your ear. It very rarely shouts.
That moment in time was one of the darkest moments I've had in my whole life. My motivation was out the door, like I just wanted to give up.
I need you to be who you're supposed to be. Don't let nobody stop you from being who you're supposed to be. Don't let nobody out-talk you. Don't let nobody tell you the doors are shut. Don't let nobody tell you that opportunities don't exist. Don't let nobody tell you that. I need you to be who you're supposed to be, because when you are who you're supposed to be, you superhuman.
I don't want to delude you because this is a career-ending injury.
Listen to me. You got fear and you got faith. And I've decided not to walk in fear, but to walk in faith. There's greatness in you. Are you hearing me? There's greatness in you. And you mean to tell me you're never going to reach your full potential? You mean to tell me you're never going to be what you've been called to be? That you're not going to do what you've been called to do because you are afraid? Some things don't come. They just not going to come to you because you want it as bad as you want to breathe. You got to put up the dukes, and you got to be willing to fight that thing out. They're not giving out success, but you can earn it. You can take it. I need you to take it. Don't let the distractions distract you.
I would have never started skateboarding.
So whatever you do, man, don't give up. Don't quit. Now listen to me closely. Just because you failed doesn't make you a failure. And when life hits you, you got to keep going. Just don't quit.
In order to achieve greatness, you have to go through a lot of pain. You definitely have setbacks, but in order to achieve that success, you have to push through.
If you hit an oak tree 1,000 times in 1,000 different spots, what's going to happen? Absolutely nothing. But if you hit an oak tree 1,000 times in the exact same spot, you know what's going to happen? You're going to bring it down. You're going to do the impossible. You're not only a special person created at a special time, you got something special inside of you.
You have to believe that you can do something that nobody else has done. And somehow that concept has to become reality.
You got greatness all inside of you, but your problem is you a scaredy cat. You soft, and every time it get hard, you quit and you give up. And I'm telling you, if you would be willing to fight your way through it, if you would be willing to fight your way through this battle, fight your way through cancer, fight your way through that academic struggle, fight your way through divorce, fight your way through it. If it was easy, everybody would do it. You gotta fight your way through it. You gotta fight the fear, because guess what? Fear ain't bigger than you. If you're going to win the fight of your life, you can't be afraid to fight.
What exactly was hurting on your body?
I think my foot's broken and my shoulder and my back, everything feels pretty broke right now. The doctor tried to get me to not skate, and I basically told him he's going to have to fight me.
Are you going to be able to take your fourth and fifth run?
I'm taking every run.
How are you able to muster up the strength to even come back out here and then take another run?
I don't know what it is. It lives inside me, but it's a lot of determination. It's a fire that just keeps burning.
Fear, you are not going to stop me. I got too far. I've come too far to give up now. You gotta believe in yourself, you gotta believe in your dream, you gotta believe one day it's gonna be your moment. One day you're gonna own the moment. Listen to me, impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men. Many of you right now, life's got you up against the rope. You can't give up, you can't give in. Listen to me, if it was easy, everybody would do it. You got this far. If you was gonna quit, you should have quit a long time ago. You got too far. You've come too far to quit. Now, show me that nothing is impossible.
Thank you. And now the Daily Dad for June the 12th, 13th, and 14th.
June 12th. We are all complicated. Naturally, we want to be perfect for our kids, in no small part because the first several years of their lives, to them we can do no wrong, and we want to prove them right. But since we know we are not perfect, inevitably we feel guilty and inadequate when we let them down, even if they're unaware of it at the time. This feeling of insufficiency can be so powerful that we're prone to hiding it or lying about it, or worse, acting like hypocrites. You might think it was devastating for the comedian Pete Davidson, who lost his father on 9/11, to learn that his father was far from perfect. His parents' marriage had not been great, which is why they were separated and divorced not long before that tragic day. His father had done drugs and gotten into trouble more than once in his adult life. As Pete grew older and discovered more and more about his heroic father who died saving people in the collapse of the Twin Towers, he wasn't disappointed, he was heartened. These failings and foibles humanized his father in a way that the stories his friends and family told the then 7-year-old Pete about his dad never could have. It made me realize that he had his own issues, Pete explained to Judd Apatow in Sicker in the Head. He had problems just like everybody else. But it also made me realize that even with all that, his morals were still intact, and none of that prevented him from being a hero. No one is perfect, least of all you. We are all complicated. We are all works in progress. Emphasis, though, on progress. You don't need to hide it. You don't need to feel guilty. It won't prevent you from being great at this most important job, or from being a hero, if the moment calls for it. June 13th. Try not to give them anything extra. We all have issues. We know that. Our goal as parents is to not pass them on, to stop the cycle of dysfunction, to not let the demons we wrestle with find softer targets in our children. But even more than that, we can't let our demons invite new ones to the party. As best we can, we must not inflict more damage or create more issues. This Philip Larkin poem expresses this tendency so perfectly. They fuck you up, your mom and dad, he writes. They may not mean to, but they do. And worse, he says, is that they give us not just their own faults, but some extra ones too. The Buddhists speak of the way that suffering transfers from generation to generation in a cycle. Why is that? Why is it that suffering rarely ever fully discharges from a generation, leaving the next one free to flourish unhindered? It's because we don't do the work. It's because sometimes we are not even aware of our own suffering. And when we are, we still don't do the work. It's often because we tell ourselves we're helpless. Look, we're going to screw up. It's inevitable. We are imperfect people, and it's impossible that we will raise perfect kids. But still, that doesn't mean we are helpless against the demons knocking at our door. We can work on ourselves. We can go to therapy so maybe they won't have to. We can try to be healthy so they'll grow up thinking that that's normal. We can try to move on from our own anger and frustration and pain so that at the very least, they do not inherit our burdens. June 14th. Keep your head up and take another swing.
And now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good. John Steinbeck.
No person has a perfect track record. Certainly no parent does. We all mess up. We all fall short. We all make mistakes. We lose our temper and our patience. We handle certain situations in ways we wish we hadn't. Is there anything worse than that feeling, knowing that you screwed up, that you might have hurt them? Shane Parrish, the creator of the wildly popular Farnham Street blog, he explained, I remember calling my late mom one night, exhausted and feeling overwhelmed. I had lost my cool on the kids. She gave me a piece of advice that stuck with me. If you don't learn how to let go of your mistakes today, they'll compound tomorrow. Go get some sleep and start again tomorrow. I still remember that when I have bad parenting days. Tomorrow, I've got to get up and start all over. You can't go back and undo what you did yesterday. You can't erase from their memories the time you lost your cool or the time you said those regrettable things. But what you can do is make this just one memory among many greater, more positive ones. What you can do is show them that this one moment is not who you are. You can strive to get better. Keep your head up, step up, try again tomorrow.
And that was The Daily Dad by Ryan Holiday for June 12th, 13th, and 14th. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Bishop Robert Barron.
So for a lot of people, maybe listening to me right now, you say, yeah, at one point in my life, I was really excited about religious things, and I was excited about the Lord, but then I didn't cultivate it. And then what does the Lord say here? Some tribulation or persecution comes. Well, yeah, it always happens, doesn't it? Some difficulty, tribulation, someone attacks me, someone makes fun of me. You got to cultivate the seed, everybody. Day in and day out, season in and season out, when it's fun to do so, when it's not fun to do so.
And that was Bishop Robert Barron. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, a major symptom of a man's or a culture's intellectual and moral disintegration is the shrinking of vision and goals to the concrete-bound range of the immediate moment. This means the progressive disappearance of abstractions from a man's mental processes or from a society's concerns. The manifestation of a disintegrating consciousness is the inability to think and act in terms of principles, unquote. And that was the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Thank you. And now, the 33 strategies of war.
Interpretation. Lee Atwater believed that adults could be divided into two groups, the overly mature and the childlike. The overly mature are inflexible and overserious, making them highly vulnerable in politics, particularly in the age of television. Dole was clearly the mature type, Atwater the child. It didn't take Atwater much research to see that Dole was hypersensitive about attacks on his wife. Replaying old charges against her in Iowa, Atwater was able to get under the senator's skin. He kept Dole's blood boiling with the letter that accused him of starting the dirty campaigning, and he upped the pressure with the perfectly timed ad that mocked Dole's record for New Hampshire voters. Although Atwater was the one pushing buttons, Dole's outburst to Brokaw focused all attention on him and his unsportsmanlike behavior. Atwater, a genius at one-upmanship, now stood back. Dole could only respond with more sourness, compounding the problem and leading to electoral suicide. The easiest types to one-up are those who are rigid. Being rigid does not necessarily mean being humorless or charmless, but it does mean being intolerant of anything that breaks their code of acceptable behavior. Being the target of some anarchic or unconventional antic will trigger an overreaction that makes them look sour, vindictive, unleaderlike. The calm exterior of the mature adult is momentarily blown away, revealing something rather peevish and puerile. Do not discourage such targets from getting personal. The more bitterly they protest and criticize you, the worse they look. They forget that the real issue is how they are perceived by the people around them, or in an electoral race by the public. Inflexible to the core, they can be induced to make mistake after mistake with the slightest push.
And that was the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene. Back in a minute. Thank you. If you're a Democrat, you should be voting Republican, because the Democrat Party has been on the wrong side of history since the Civil War. Vote Republican. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the last 20 minutes of Policecraft by Adam Plantinga.
Afterward. You get asked a lot of questions as a cop, whether you're on or off duty. I'm using this space to answer some of the most common questions I've fielded over my police career, as well as a few that seemed a bit out of left field. If you are an inquisitive member of the public, perhaps your question will be answered here. If not, consider attending one of the educational programs that many departments offer, like Coffee with a Cop, where police can give you their perspective and you can give them yours. You can also drink coffee together, which is the liquid lifeblood of any worthwhile endeavor. Question: why did you want to be a cop? Answer: to help people. This is true of me and of most cops. In fact, every recruit dutifully recites this in the academy when asked by the instructional staff why they chose the police profession. But if you want to get a cheap guffaw from a veteran cop at the station, tell him you're looking forward to helping people today. It's not that you don't want to help people. It's just not something you say. It sounds too hokey. Try saying it to your lieutenant once when he's having a bad day. Have an exit strategy for when he chucks a stapler at your head. Question: I got pulled over for the same moving violation by two different cops. One gave me a ticket, one didn't. What gives? Answer: for starters, how about you drive better? But to field your question, police officers have broad discretion on whether to issue a citation. Some cops pull cars over solely as a pretext to look for felony suspects or guns, not because they are all afire about traffic enforcement. If there are no weapons or contraband, and the driver has no warrants and a valid driver's license, and didn't commit a particularly heinous violation, they lose all interest in you and you will be released without a ticket. Other officers are strictly letter of the law. Their philosophy is no breaks, no deals, everybody gets cited. When they were kids, they heard the story of Jack and the Beanstalk and wondered if it was okay for Jack to have committed burglary. In Milwaukee, such officers were called ropes. They're the kind of person who will give someone a citation for putting a flyer on a car windshield, a law so obscure most cops don't even know it's illegal unless they are a savant or studying for a promotional exam. Question: do the police have quotas for arrests or tickets? Answer: they don't. With the exception of places like Ferguson, which purportedly employed a civic system overwhelmingly reliant on the income generated from citations, in short, a system that required people to break the law, the police do not arrest or cite to fill quotas. There are people who get cash for every arrest they make, but those people are called bounty hunters. In California, ticket quotas are actually illegal. Now, that doesn't mean the shift supervisor won't tell you to get out there and write some movers because he's getting hammered by citizen complaints about speeding cars on the block. But there's no listed numerical goal. Question: say you're at work and are suspected of engaging in an unlawful enterprise. Can the police search your desk? Answer: it sort of depends, which is the stock answer to many legal questions. It boils down to whether you have a reasonable expectation of privacy at your workspace. Employers can typically give the police consent to search an employee's desk, file cabinet, locker, and work computer if the company has regular access and control over those places. If a desk drawer is locked, that changes things. Your personal laptop is off limits. So is your person, unless the officer can articulate specific probable cause that you are carrying evidence or weapons or contraband. But what if your pants are work pants provided by and returnable to the company? I don't know. I don't have all the answers. Some days, all I have is more questions. Question: if I record a crime with my phone, can the police take my phone away from me? Answer: we'd hope you'd share your phone video with us because you're a concerned citizen who wants to contribute to our shared mission of reducing crime and enhancing the quality of life in the city. But unless you are in some way party to the crime, we can't seize your phone without a warrant or consent. We can only ask for it politely. Law enforcement and citizens alike get confused about this issue. But the bottom line is this. In the vast majority of jurisdictions, if a cop takes your phone under these circumstances without your permission, that's called theft. Feel free to lodge a complaint. Question: should I have a gun in the house to protect myself and my family? Answer: ask yourself this. Could you kill someone if your life or the life of a loved one depended on it? If you waffle on this answer, even for a moment, or if you mentally picture purposefully winging a perpetrator in the arm or leg or firing a warning shot, the answer is no, you probably couldn't. And you need to consider that gun and invest in an excellent home security system or a guard dog instead. Because when it comes to home defense, guns aren't just for scaring people. And when you fire one at someone in proximity, odds are you will seriously injure or kill them. Hesitate, and all you do is make an awful situation worse as the suspect shoots you first or takes your gun away and uses it on you and your family. So know yourself and how you tick, and plan accordingly. Question: how have your coworkers received your writing? Answer: they've been pretty kind. Some have approached me with my first book in hand and asked me to sign it. In fact, some of the crooks I've dealt with over the years have even displayed mild interest in my literary trajectory. Shortly after 400 Things Cops Know came out, I had a Wall Street Journal photo shoot on the unit block of 6th Street in San Francisco, a place where I have arrested many people. This piqued the curiosity of one 6th Street crack dealer, who I'll call L. Mac. "I've hit it big, L. Mac," I told him. He shrugged and then photobombed all of my subsequent pictures, much to the amusement of my wife, who wanted to put one of the shots on our family Christmas card. Question: why did you leave the Milwaukee Police Department? Answer: I relished working for the MPD, and Milwaukee is my kind of town. I never would have left. But then I met my wife-to-be. When she took a job in San Francisco, I tagged right along. It was atypical because there's not a lot of lateral movement among cops. You get to a department, you stay there. And the few guys you know who do leave for another agency often return a few months later with a newfound appreciation for the place they thought they detested. But even if you know you're a lifer at your department, it's fun to talk about other agencies, sometimes wistfully. "Berkeley PD has fatigue abatement," a coworker will insist. "You get 2 15-minute naps built into your shift. I'm telling you." Question: I often see 2 patrol cars pulled up next to each other, driver's side to driver's side, in a parking lot or at the side of the road. What are those officers talking about? Answer: there's a 15% chance they're discussing that new wrinkle in case law as it applies to search and seizure, or how to most effectively combat the recent rash of hot prowl burglaries. There is a 25% chance they're talking about their kids' sports teams. There is a 60% chance they are extolling the virtues of the leggy new civilian clerk, for we are cops, not monks, or engaging in an in-depth discussion on why farts smell worse in the shower. I have done the research, and these percentages are exact. Cops need to decompress a bit. We see a lot of horrific things. So when you clear an assignment and have an opportunity to talk to your fellow officer, it's your chance to laugh, to fume, to make uncensored and sweeping generalizations about everything from social ills to local politicians, which are not mutually exclusive. This banter is far from a PG rating. It's called cop talk, and it's essential to the job, both to build camaraderie and to make sense of your day. And if a recording of that conversation leaks and goes viral, or a citizen overhears it in a place where the cops had a reasonable expectation of privacy and feathers are ruffled, so be it. Want to hear something highbrow and civilized? Go find a duchess. Question: ever encountered a serial killer? I've seen these movies. Answer: Hollywood would have you believe there is a serial killer around every corner, but the FBI's Violent Crimes Center conservatively estimates there are between 100 and 200 serial killers in the United States and Canada. Some meticulously plan their crimes, while others kill in the heat of the moment. Some are socially competent and charismatic, far from the kind of person who would spook you until it was too late. Others are inept with poor hygiene. A handful take trophies: hair, clothing, jewelry. Most are lone white males. It's easy to assume serial killers are mostly the products of the fevered imaginations of novelists and screenwriters looking for material. But Rolf Mueller ran into one on a July day in 1991 and arrested him after a roll-around fight in a small apartment, a subsequent search of which revealed the remains of 11 corpses, including a man's severed head in the refrigerator and a 57-gallon acid drum filled with human torsos. The suspect? A polite and unassuming third-shift employee of the local Milwaukee chocolate factory, fellow by the name of Jeffrey Dahmer. Question: do officers have to live in the city they police? Answer: Milwaukee had a residency requirement when I was there, which caused a fair amount of grumbling among the rank and file, who wanted homes far from the clamor and wished to dodge situations where you're in your front yard and someone comes up to you and says, "Remember me?" and you have to rack your brain to recall if you arrested this guy once for aggravated assault, or you were just both in Toastmasters years back. San Francisco has no such requirement, which is nice, because the current median home price for a single-family residence is $800,000. I know an SF sergeant whose primary residence is in Arizona. He stays in a cut-rate hotel during the work week and flies home on weekends. Question: do cops ever go on strike? Answer: no. Bus drivers, sanitation workers, and nurses all strike from time to time. Not cops. Non-strike clauses are written into every law enforcement labor agreement. The last time a major metropolitan police department walked off the job was 1981 in my town of Milwaukee, partly in response to the callous remarks of a city alderman after officers John Makayuski and Charles Melberg were murdered in an alley while investigating a tavern robbery. It wasn't clear how many of the city's 2,000 officers walked off the job, but by nightfall, all district station doors were locked to the public. The work stoppage lasted 16 hours. If you were a criminal in Milwaukee during that time, you were probably pleased with this development and figured it opened up some opportunities to expand. Once you know the cops aren't coming, anything goes. If you were everyone else, I'm guessing that was a pretty long 16 hours. Question: what are you looking for when you have some downtime and are just driving around in your patrol car? Answer: it's all about the hierarchy of crime. Violent offenses come first, then property violations, then drugs, then traffic tickets. When you're on the street, you're looking for the guy who just started doing something different from what he was doing a moment ago. You come around the corner and there's a man picking his fingernails or fiddling with his shoelaces or talking unnaturally loud. The things people do when they're nervous and trying to act too casual. Or you watch the fellow who's meandering on a street where everyone else is walking briskly toward a destination. Sure, maybe he's just waiting for his buddy or has some time to kill before a job interview. Or maybe he's sizing up his next robbery victim. Give him a second look. But sometimes you're just out there hunting for a tasty grilled chicken sandwich that's going to hang off both sides of the plate. Because you can't fight crime all day. At some point, you need to stop and have a meal. Question: what's the best cop show, cop movie, cop song? Answer: for TV, the best is The Wire. No other program is even in the conversation. As far as movies, The Departed has its moments, but I'm going to go with L.A. Confidential. The best song about cops is State Trooper by Bruce Springsteen. While I'm on a roll, the best quote about the police from a non-police movie is from Marty in The Cabin in the Woods. Statistical fact: cops will never pull over a man with a huge bong in his car. Why? They fear this man. They know he sees further than they, and he will bind them with ancient logics. But, and this is likely your most pressing question, how about the best world-weary movie cop answering machine message? It comes courtesy of Bruce Willis as burned-out Pittsburgh detective Tom Hardy in the film Striking Distance, whose machine wearily intones, "This is Hardy here. Go." Question: what are some of the differences between Hollywood and reality? Answer: movie cops love their tough guy lines. The hero officer will shoot a serial killer in a bar and then say something like, "First round's on me." Or punch out a gunman in a supermarket and then proclaim, "Clean up on aisle 4. I strive to be the most professional officer I can be. As such, I have resisted the temptation to call a criminal hairball or dog breath, as Belker used to on Hill Street Blues. My resolve weakens annually. Real cops aren't supposed to say those things for all the obvious reasons. When they do, it doesn't go well. Rolf Mueller told me of a Milwaukee officer who, many years ago, responded to a seasonal robbery in progress and came face to face with the robber, who still had gun in hand. "Merry Christmas, motherfucker," the cop said before shooting the suspect. A citizen witness heard this and complained, and the cop was suspended. Now, The officer shouldn't have said what he said, although he was in a high-stress situation and might not even have been fully aware of the words coming out of his mouth. But a formal citizen complaint? Here you had a cop who put himself in harm's way, foiled an armed robbery, and stopped the suspect cold, preventing him from hurting anyone. The witness's first thought was to take issue with the officer's salty language instead of sending him a holiday ham. That doesn't seem quite right. Here's another difference. Movie cops rarely handcuff anyone. They just haul the suspect away toward the squad car, even the dangerous felons who have a propensity for fleeing police. Maybe the movie cops are thinking, how could this man possibly escape when I have a semi-firm grip on one loose side of his jacket? Also, the whispered pfft that gun silencers make on the screen is pure Hollywood. Silencers on handguns don't silence them at all. They're still loud, they're just not make your ears bleed loud. But what some silencers can do is erase a bullet's striation marks as it passes through the gun barrel, making it nearly impossible to link the bullet to the weapon that fired it. Finally, although many police films and shows are laughably unrealistic, I'm told that firefighter movies and TV programs that show the glory boys with lots of free time to exercise and cook elaborate meals and engage in romantic hijinks without seemingly doing any meaningful work, I'm told by department insiders that these films are strikingly accurate. Question: would you want your children to be cops? Answer: I'm not sure. I'd be glad if they were interested in a service-related field. I'd lament how the job would coarsen them. Honestly, I'd probably push them toward firefighting. When she was 5, my daughter gave me a flower and told me to give it to the bad guys. I asked her why, and she said, so they wouldn't be bad anymore. What I'd really like to do is to freeze my children in time so they'd always think, this is how the world works. This concludes Policecraft by Adam Plantinga, narrated by Steve Marvel, a member of SAG-AFTRA.
And that, as he was just saying, that's the end of Policecraft by Adam Plantinga. I guess I'm always pronouncing his name wrong. And so next week we'll see about maybe firefighting or paramedic or something like that. Back in a minute. Thank you. The following is one of my voiceover demos. If you're a voiceover artist and you would like to advertise one of your demos on my podcast, please send an MP3 to thedrill12, all one word, at gmail.com. That's thedrill12 at gmail.com. Back in a minute.
Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate, just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you are not neutral and that the government has no rights.